I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide podcast, raw and unfiltered. And if you've already been following me, you'll discover or have discovered that we're sharing with you some very relatable situations that either you've experienced or someone else has experienced, and helping you guide through the process by which you can get some form of resolution. So guess what? You're not alone now in uncovering and filtering and discovering the reliable information out there, because here's the truth: there is so much information out there, and who do you trust? What's right for you? And it's also what I say, context dependent. And so not all information and not all types of treatments or services are right for you. So how do you qualify them? How do you make that difference? So rather than promoting a specific product or promoting a certain person, I'm sharing with you the process by which you can make better decisions for yourself. Because here's one thing that I do know. I don't know you personally, and I don't know your specific problem, but the process and the discernment to make the right decision is pretty much universal. And we get to experience that through role play. And so I get to invite these really amazing individuals in the health field that have tremendous impact on their communities by sharing with them and giving them and guiding them to the right outcomes that serve them the best. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to do a 6-minute role play. And I've invited two amazing doctors, that's Dr. Ormond and Dr. Brewer, and one of them will present with a problem, and then the other one will guide them to some form of resolution. Now, let's be fair. It's a 6-minute role play. And so we're not going to be able to fully resolve it, but you'll get the idea. And the purpose is for you to get a specific insight and a specific action step that you can then take. And even if it's connecting with them for more information or perhaps guidance, but at least you'll have a pathway forward, because in my experience, there's not enough explanation of how to navigate, that journey to optimize your health. So for today, I'm really excited to be inviting Dr. Orman and Dr. Brewer on this podcast. And I'm going to invite Dr. Orman first to briefly introduce himself. Then we'll go with Dr. Brewer, and then we'll find out what roles they're going to play. We're going to go into a 6-minute role play, after which we'll have about 10, 12 minutes unpacking all of that. So you've got a good understanding as how it can impact you and perhaps some of the things that you now need to do. So Dr. Orman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Dr. Bart. It's great to be here. It's so fun in this format that you've created. My name is Dr. Matt Ormond. I live in Arizona, just south of Phoenix. I have a practice in Huntington Beach and a practice here in Maricopa, Arizona. My background, my degree is in chiropractic, so I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I've specialized in sports medicine and nutrition, but I've expanded into acupuncture and kinesiology. And so where I started my practice was in sports medicine. And over the course of nearly 20 years, I've seen over 85,000 cases. And where I thought I was treating knee injuries and back injuries, I began to really understand what I'm treating. And it's actually the physiology of stress. And so for the last 17 years of my practice, I have dialed into just treating stress in the nervous system. And I consider myself a glorified electrician as I look at the body and where those disturbances arise, and then bringing unique solutions to these problems. So that's a snapshot of what to do.
I love it. And I'm very much looking forward to unpacking more of what you do so that the listener can learn more as to what they can do. So thank you for that, Dr. Ormond. Dr. Brewer, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go into the whole role play.
Perfect. My name is Paul Brewer, originally from Hawaii, and currently live in Boise, Idaho, where I have my practice. So I have a more of like a sports vision, concussion rehabilitative practice, more focusing on vision and like vestibular stuff. I also lecture, so I actually fly out quite a bit, like monthly, to teach other doctors how to do the stuff I do. So that's what I've been doing over the last several years, and love treating people, love seeing people that have like concussions and other issues recover and get their lives back. And I guess a quick factoid about me is that I love the ocean. I'm like an Aquaman. I love surfing, diving, and that's, a big part of my life.
No, that's awesome. And I'm actually planning a trip to Australia, and I was thinking, well, maybe I should go through Hawaii, but I don't think I'll do that because now it's gonna take me a lot longer. But thank you for that, Dr. Brewer. And so I know today that you're showing up as the patient. And so what's your condition? And then we'll get started with the role play.
So my condition is I have a shoulder pain. It's been going on for the last 9 months.
Great. Let's do it. So we got 6 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning before the end, and go for it.
Awesome. Paul, thank you for coming in. Tell me about your shoulder. What's going on there? What do you notice?
Yeah, it's my right shoulder. It hurts. It's aching. It's been going on for like the last 9 months, and I've been to a lot of places. I've been to I went to a medical doctor, and they ruled out any tears, and nothing's going on there. And I've been to a physical therapist and a massage therapist, and honestly, like, they help, but what happens is that it helps momentarily or for a day or so, then the pain comes right back.
Got it. So what I'm hearing you say is there's some modest relief, but that relief really isn't lasting.
Correct.
I mean,
Yeah.
have you noticed, like, are you doing pain medicine, or what else are you doing to just mitigate pain at this point?
Yeah, they have me on some I take ibuprofen and things like that. And it kind of helps, but the pain's still there. It doesn't. If I were to say that it relieved the pain, it doesn't. I mean, it kind of does a little relief, but I still feel the pain. It hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you for sharing that. I can understand how frustrating that is, right? For the last 9 months, be searching for answers and really not finding resolution. So am I hearing you correctly? Do I hear something?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's like it's affecting my life. I mean, literally, at work, I can't concentrate. It's as much as the pains in my shoulder, like it's affecting me mentally. Like, I can't perform as well as I used to.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. So I'm so glad you're here. As you know, we do things a little bit differently here. My background's chiropractic, but I'm going to look through just, musculoskeletal system. My suspicion is this, though, however, just with you having been through a physical therapist and a massage therapist, it's very likely that your symptoms aren't just musculoskeletal in nature. I have confidence that, if it were, that they would have found some resolution right there. So you mentioned, 9 months ago began. What was going on in your life? What, if you could look through the lens of stress, what stressors were happening in your life around, 9 months ago, a year ago?
I'll say, like, what? Now that you bring that up, 10 months ago, my father passed away.
Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. How are you doing with that?
It's hard.
And believe it or not, and maybe you do believe that will have some influence on pain. Here's a lens I view the body through. I look through the lens of fight or flight. There's a nervous system that's balanced, and then we have the rest and digest and the fight or flight side of the nervous system. And when we're into an emotional state that that has any charge out of balance, we get stuck into a state of fight or flight. And it's really, really interesting. In that state of fight or flight, the physiology, whether you're male or female, old or young, is completely predetermined. So in a state of fight or flight, muscles contract, blood vessels constrict, brain function changes, heart rate elevates, digestion slows down, the immune system stops working. So what I hear, what I kind of sense with you is you're in this state right now where the immune system's just not replenishing. It's just not creating new cells quickly enough. And likely blood supply, which to the left shoulder, which is maybe non-injured, perhaps there's an old shoulder injury on that right side. The left side has ample blood supply, but however, the right side does not. Do you have any previous injuries that you can recall with that right shoulder in your?
Yeah, I actually did. I've when I played sports before, I actually kind of had a small little tear in the shoulder. It was like 20 years back, but they did surgery on it. It recovered, and there's nothing, like, it never had any pain after that.
Got it. Yeah, so that makes sense where that right side shows up. Another question, if you don't mind me asking, sleep-wise, I'm sure, like, laying on that right side, is that a challenge? What do you notice?
For sure. Yeah, like, if I end up falling asleep on that side, it hurts a lot more in the morning.
Yeah.
Versus if I slept on the left side.
And something I'm very, very present to is when, and I don't know if grief is the primary emotion, but, you mentioned loss of your father. Grief is an emotion that certainly affects the nervous system, as does anger and frustration and resentment. All those do. However, grief is connected, this is Eastern thought, is connected with the lung meridian. And the lung meridian, there's a specific times of day through a 24-hour cycle that each meridian replenishes. And so between 3 and 5 a.m., the lung meridian is replenishing. And the lung meridian, the primary emotion that connects with this, again, in Eastern thought, they've connected meridian systems with various emotions. So grief happens to be the primary emotion that shows up with the lung meridian. And the primary muscle, here's the kinesiology's contribution, merging kind of the East and West, is the muscle associated with the lung meridian is the diaphragm. And so if I can connect the dots a little bit more, that diaphragm is a powerful muscle. It connects us front to back. But when you're lifting and doing something, that engages core, that diaphragm orchestrates and it coordinates that lift or that movement. And what I find with, grief is a good one, that diaphragm on it feels like on the right side will stay in a state of contraction. So, a muscle that is at full length, has full strength as it contracted. That a muscle that's already pre-contracted doesn't have the strength. And so now that shoulder blade on that right side, without being protected and coordinated by the diaphragm, is moving on its own. And so left side gets locked in and it has good stability. The right side will wing a little bit. And so that can lead to just mechanical difficulties there. And so looking through the lens of the diaphragm, there's ways to reset that. And I'll share some ideas and tips with you on that front in a moment. I'll put a pin there. But I'll pause there. Any questions or anything that I said right around through there that resonates or does not resonate with you?
We have 1 minute. 1 minute.
Yeah, for sure. That makes sense. I think, honestly, I've been my thing with my dad. It really affected me, and I can see kind of what you're explaining, how it can affect me on a physical level.
Beautiful. And here's an interesting point. I brought up that 3 a.m. time frame, and do you notice, are you waking up in that window?
I am actually, yeah, almost every night.
So that just confirms to me, again, we're not in the musculoskeletal side anymore. There's old injury and scar tissue, but it is, your body is processing through this grief. And so here's something I want to infuse in every patient, is that the trust, like your body, you can trust that your body is processing and doing things for you in that time frame. That could be when you're waking up early in that morning. You can simply reflect on whatever's present for you in regards to grief with your father, and there's an opportunity to connect and move through some things and facilitate that. In regards to the diaphragm, something I like to do is breathing technique, and I'll engage just full conscious breath. And you can get that diaphragm to reset pretty quickly. And then I'll add a rolled towel between my shoulder blades. As I lay on the floor, I'll open up my chest, laying with that towel going vertical. And so now it opens up the chest. It allows me to dial into that diaphragm, and it resets the shoulder blade. That might be a good place to start, and we can kind of go from there. And I'll pause there.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Sure. Wow, that's amazing. So I want to start off with you, Paul. What's going on there? What was that for you?
Like, how did I feel?
Well, what was that all about for you as you're showing up with a problem? What specifically do you want people to know about that particular problem, and why you chose that one, or what that experience was for you with this interchange?
It's interesting, because talking to Matt even earlier, like really, I think what it comes down to is that, like, a lot of times we look for a physical cause for whatever pain we're feeling. So if we feel pain in our shoulder, we assume that it's a tear, we assume it's inflammation, and we assume it's something physical, right? And a lot of times, I think, and I see it in my own patients too. So it's interesting that he's doing this kind of scenario, but like where grief or some kind of trauma can manifest physically over time, or even like abruptly. So that is kind of cool to talk about that. And actually, I did have a shoulder injury because I had surgery. I played water polo and I tore my shoulder, and and it's funny because it never acts up. But interesting thing, kind of like segueing with him, is that, like, when there are times of grief, my shoulder does flare up, which is kind of interesting because I never thought about that before. So it's actually giving me some education about this.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this conversation, how it's going to unfold. But let me first go to Dr. Ormond or Matt, and since we're on first name basis now, Matt, what was that all about for you, and what's the message that you want to get out?
Thank you. Thanks, Paul, first of all. So, I selected that shoulder problem for Paul to role play into. And the reason I did, it's so common. I mean, I'm in my 40s, and this is one of the most common complaints that I hear from 40-something-year-olds or middle-aged people. And just what Paul said is we go to our medical doctor or to a chiropractor, we get an x-ray, we see that it's not broken or nothing's torn there. And now we're left to kind of toil and try to figure things out for ourselves. And what I want to show is just how multi-dimensional our bodies really are. There are several factors that affect our body. And I think intuitively, many of us know this, but then, when our intuition doesn't match what a doctor is saying, then we end up doubting ourselves. And I think ultimately where we land is kind of in a state of hopelessness of just like, maybe this is just my shoulder is going to be forever. And I think with my patient base, at least, I think hope is really good medicine. It's not the only remedy that I use, but infusing hope into somebody that has a chronic issue that they've been chasing for 9 months or 9 years is if we can move the needle and bring that nervous system back into balance with hope or anything like that, that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Matt, because here's what's really fascinating about all this, and I look forward to really unpacking it, is the relationship with our human experience, outside of ourself, so to speak, and then within ourself, in our head, our emotion, our spiritually, and how it then plays out in our body. And just to give the listener a very simple example, is that any kind of digestive issues oftentimes will manifest with skin issues. And so they'll typically go to an allergist or some dermatologist, and they'll prescribe all sorts of medications, but no one's looking at the digestive system. And so that's a very simple example of how the physical dynamics or dysfunction in one area leads to another one. But what's so important is that, our brain, and the language of our brain, those are our thoughts, and the language of our body is our emotions. And so those are going to manifest. I didn't realize it was so specific. And that's what I find very, very fascinating. And for all listeners out there, it's incumbent in you to explore all possibilities and find the right people that can help explore that. So if we were to come to you, Matt, what is that process? Expand on what you already shared with us, because I find this rather fascinating.
Yeah, there's two approaches. Thank you for saying that. There's a couple of approaches that I'll take. If I'm in person, certainly there's some hands-on things that I'll certainly do. With Paul, I would be moving that bicep tendon around and making sure that it's fitting in that bicipital groove. I'd also be looking at the lat connection, and then the neck, shoulder and neck will always have connection. So there are some physical things that should be maintained. But I mentioned earlier on that I consider myself a glorified electrician. Is truly just how I see the body. And, in the acupuncture vernaculum, electricity and chi energy kind of have similar meanings, but there's a principle that suggests that where electricity goes, blood flows. And so I'm looking for where electricity is not going. And then, I'll figure out why it's not going there. And so if we landed on grief, for instance, there's, as an electrician, electricity is positive and negative ions. And when those ions are in balance, they repel and it creates motion. And so now in that balanced state, we have electricity moving in an organized pattern, and now oxygen flow is moving. When we're in a state that's not balanced, so grief will change that electricity. It'll be, there's not a good or bad emotion. There's negative and positive emotions. So what I'll do with the patient, I'll walk them through, and I am certainly not a talk therapist or a cognitive behavioral therapist at all. My access point is through physiology. And so the attempt truly is to balance that physiology And so if there's a negative, negative emotion or negative experience that's trapped there, I come from this principle that all things at all times work together for our good. And sometimes if I have a patient who's lost a child or been cheated on by a spouse or had a major bankruptcy or something like that, it takes a little bit of working to get to alignment with that principle. But all things at all times work together for our good. And so now it's in there harvesting the gold. Our bodies our nervous systems are incredibly intelligent. So I use the rock in our shoe analogy. We've all had a rock in our shoe, and I'll ask, how do you know there's a rock in your shoe? And that discomfort, that pain is perfect feedback. And we've had that enough times, we know how to interpret that feedback and simply removing that rock from the shoe. And so I think emotion is a metaphoric rock in our shoe. And so it's kind, it will wait for us. And when we're ready to look into that negative emotion and harvest what's left for us, there is gold there. And how did that serve us? And there's no time frame in which to overcome grief, but let's use a more less complicated emotion like resentment. You can go into a resentment, and if we can harvest gold and see how that really served us, we don't change the story, but we shift the electricity around it. And so that's kind of the approach that I use with patients.
No, that's fascinating, and it's awesome that you are practicing in this manner, because obviously, I mean, we're a fully integrated, complex, self-regulating, semi-closed system, and it's all about, when you think about it, transfer of information. And when there is a structural block, for example, with an injury to begin with, that transfer of information is going to be affected, but it's also the other way around too, right? So when mentally there's something going on, you're changing all sorts of electromagnetic fields within the brain, then within the body, and that's definitely an effect. And what I want the listener to also very specifically understand, what Matt was saying earlier, is that when you begin, is just even the smallest misalignment. So the diaphragm, if it's just not moving like it should, then a millimeter or two misalignment there is going to affect the shoulder. And then that entire, imbalance creates an imbalance throughout everything. And the body is just a perfectly functioning body. They're supposed to be. It's designed that way, to be ideal weight, to be ideal active, to be ideal, eating the right kind of food. And when you're not paying attention to that, then that becomes a problem. But before I want to get some more thoughts from Paul, what I find very interesting is that as a medical professional, an MD, right, we've kind of put aside all these incredible insights that, were brought about 2,500 years ago with Hippocrates, because he said basically three things that you kind of shared with us today. Number one is that the natural forces within us are the strongest forces for healing. The other one is the one as far as how our minds is affecting our body, and our willingness to give up a certain issue, and it's also a lesson for us in regards to what's going on in life and the incidence or the appearance of a condition. So you're saying all these things that Hippocrates really recognized many years ago, but I think most professionals have completely forgotten that. And so tapping into the natural ability of the body to restore form and function is the key. And guess what? It's not just a single pill, and it's not just a single, physical treatment. I mean, it is everything. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that your mind affects everything else. Paul, what would you like to add on any of this and your insights and perspectives that you think would be helpful for people to know?
Honestly, what Matt shared, it kind of gave me a paradigm shift in kind of how I'm going to practice now. I think
Great.
It's interesting because I kind of do what he does a little bit in a different way, where when I'm helping a patient, I'm telling them that, hey, I'm not healing you. You're doing this to heal yourself. But looking at different types of eye issues, even pertaining to eye issues that you like blurry vision or headache and vision-induced headaches and whatnot, I never thought about it as a emotional thing, if that makes sense. So hearing what Matt has shared with us today, I'm looking back now, and I was actually, while you guys were talking, I was thinking about previous patients. I'm like, oh, we could have probably done this, like,
Mhm.
so now practicing forward, I probably actually going to use some of his stuff in some ways. I might actually have to talk to you more about
Absolutely.
what you do, so I can maybe apply it in my realm, in my sphere of practice.
Well, you're demonstrating the exact purpose and the success of this podcast because I'm getting all these incredible insights from everyone that I'm talking to, and you're showing it right here, which is exactly the purpose, and also an opportunity for the patients, the consumer to find out, oh, okay, well maybe this has something significant, and I need to address that as well. But I like what Matt was saying too, is that you're not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or anything else, but just bringing into the awareness, because you mentioned the body's intelligent, the mind is intelligent. The unconscious mind is serving the conscious mind to do the right thing. So everything's motivated by positive intent. And so when we ask the right questions, but if we don't have the awareness, then we don't have any direction. So that's what I love about what you're doing. You're helping them with that awareness, and then you're also helping them structurally. What else would you like to share, Matt?
There's so much here. I appreciate this forum, this opportunity to unpack some things. There's my favorite quote is simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And to your point about the way we approach the body now in the medical profession is there's so much complexity. I mean, we specialize in so many various parts of the body, and I think overall you used a beautiful example about digestive issues manifest as skin disorders, and there's ultimate just simplicity in the way this body expresses itself. And so just pulling back the curtain a little bit and allowing people just to go back into the intuition that is ours. Anytime I have a child on my table or that I'm in virtual space and I have a chance to speak with mom or dad when they're present, I'll ask them, what's your impression? What's going on here? What does your intuition say? And I trust a mother's intuition over just about any medical test that I can provide. And so I think, the phrase that have brought me to this profession is simply the power that made the body heals the body. And that holds frame for so much exploration. And so truly just unlocking that power has been a gift. I'm at best a glorified electrician or an elevator operator pushing the buttons, but this body, when it's whole, when it's balanced, it is capable of healing, of, you name it, anything.
Well, that's beautifully said, and interesting. You said that something I've shared with all my patients pretty much is I trust my patients. I trust my patients to know better than me. I know many of my colleagues won't agree with that, and I would ask them the same question. Well, what do you think? What do you think is going on? And so I've always seen my job as a let's call it a glorified educator, right?
Yeah.
So I'm giving all the tools and resources and insights and knowledge to my patients to have them make the right decision for themselves. Because in making that right decision, mentally, they're already geared up and they're tapping into the incredible intelligence, as you mentioned, that our body has to restore form and function. And I, 20 years ago, after, getting enough insights, I realized I came up with my own vision, and I know that you would agree with this, Matt. We'll have to test Paul on this, but I'm sure he'll agree too. Is that the future? The vision of the future doctor would be one that would not be prescribing drugs and performing surgeries, because when we can tap into the innate intelligence of our body, it's just so much better. And interesting enough, I think a lot of patients or people are looking for that nowadays. Well, we need to wrap it up. We could talk for hours on this one. This is a topic very dear to mine. Even as a plastic and reconstructive surgeon, I've delved into many other dimensions. So that's why I do appreciate all this. But Paul, Dr. Brewer, I'm going to have you wrap it up for yourself. Anything else that you want people to know about you? How do people get a hold of you? One final comment, then I'll go with Dr. Ormond, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I guess the best way to contact me would be email. Should I say that or say that?
Yeah, sure. Whatever works for you.
So it's Brewer PM, so BREWER PM at gmail.com. Best way to contact me is by that way. And mostly for me, I mean, I love helping people. I get calls all the time, like text throughout the nation. I even get texts from Germany. I was in Germany just from a course I taught out there, and you get these random texts throughout the day or emails, and it's fun helping people. I love helping people succeed, and I love people having success with their patients, especially when it comes to vision related stuff.
I love it. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Brewer. Matt, Dr. Ormond, how do people get a hold of you? And one final comment from you.
Thank you. Yeah, email probably is as good as any, is dr.matthew.ormond@gmail. I'm on the socials, Matthew Ormond, Facebook, Instagram is Dr. O, Matthew Ormond, a couple of accounts there. And I just want to acknowledge Paul, thank you for coming on, not knowing fully what you're stepping into, but you stepped in beautifully, and I'm so grateful. And I heard you just kind of conclude with everything pertaining to the eye. There's something that you taught me when we lived in Fullerton together. As you were just finishing up school, you talked about the holistic lens of using the eye to assess physical health. And it was such literally, here's a metaphor of an eye-opening expression of how, at each one of these professions, an audiologist, an ear, nose, throat, a dentist, a optometrist can really assess beautifully and impactfully the overall health of the body. And so that's inspired me to, what else can I do? How else can I impact people's body through my lens and through my degree and my expertise and gifts. And so I feel, I say this all the time, but this is truth. Next to being a husband and a father, it's my greatest privilege to walk with people. I didn't realize this when I stepped into this profession, but I have become a student of pain. And I have formed this romantic relationship with pain. And have learned to decipher pain and demystify pain for people. And I find, pain is scary for a lot of us. There's a lot of fear around there. But when we can understand what the pathophysiology, what the causation of that pain is, it takes the fear factor away. And now we can address what is. And so that's the special gift that I bring to the table.
Yeah, and thank you for that perspective. And it's a perspective that, we need to share with a lot more people, and for the listener as well, find those docs out there, because there's many of them out there, whether they're chiropractors, MDs, DOs, or just health coaches. Find out those people that, number one, will listen to you. Number two, will see you in your entirety. And like we see in so many movies, right? Or hear in so many movies, I see you. So excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Orman and Dr. Brewer. This podcast is designed to help the listener come up with some specific insights, and so that they could potentially pivot how they're addressing, their own health journey by taking different types of action steps. Ultimately, you're accountable and responsible for what it is that you do. You're also responsible and accountable for the acceptance of whatever information that you get. But truly, there's so many incredible doctors like those that come on my show, as well as health coaches and other individuals, to absolutely help guide you to make better decisions for yourself. So Matt and Paul, thank you so much. And I am Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is the Doctor's Guide, raw and unfiltered. And why is it raw? Why is it unfiltered? Because none of this is scripted. Everything comes out, and we even see some children in the background. I'll be back.
That could happen.